we are going to now go into the game with Army 1 taking on Cosmic Joke. I should check that and get it right. Yeah, Cosmic Joke. They are indeed. So we're going to get the game started, where we are playing on the map Prof X, which players may have seen before. I think the last time we saw this was in Clopsy 9, which is where we would have seen the heavy docks play going on.
When do we not see heavy docks play these days, though?
Well, I think we might see in this tournament. I'm expecting to see a lot of transitions into tanks. Early games on these maps saw a lot of play with docks, and then as players started to get more familiar with them, I saw them move away from the docks play into tanks. But I don't think on this map we're going to see that. I think we're going to see dock swarms all over the place.
No, just looking around here, you can see that there are so many very, very narrow corridors here, and it's going to be all about the movement. And I can see the air is obviously going to play a significant role on this. I'd be very surprised if Espiroti doesn't become the deciding factor in map control for this particular map, just because of how many obstacles there are.
Well, a key issue we've had on this map is really taking this area of ground. Whoever controls this space tends to win on this map. It is going to be the battleground. You can invade the rest of the map, but you'll tend to get about 50% of it. There'll be a lot of battles in the middle, but unless you owned this area here with the numerous additional mechs that it has, you are not going to win the main battle.
Well, exactly. There's a lot of mechs points there. My maths is awful, but there's enough there that you can. I'm just desperately trying to run the figures.
That's why I stayed away from giving a number. There's a lot of mechs.
There are 20 metal points there. Right. Sorry, there are 20 metal points there, and you get 7 metal income for each.
Well, there you go. On this map, there are a total of 108 points. So 20 is obviously a significant portion of that. It's like a little less than 1/5 of the total metal points are in that area.
In a game which is so heavily skewed towards economic control as Planetary Annihilation, that advantage, a 20% advantage, is absolutely huge in terms of what you can actually do with that metal. As long as you've got the energy, of course, to support that. A lot of players I've seen in recent games have neglected energy, much to their detriment, and we now have the players starting in.
We do indeed. So we see that they have spawned half and half, not in the X formation we've sometimes seen. So we have, let's see, vehicle start going on there from one of the Army 1 players, and indeed a vehicle start from both of the Cosmic Joke players. So already my predictions, their traditional inaccuracy.
Traditionally, yes. I put as much weight in your predictions as I clearly ought to have put in the polls for the general election just gone.
Well, oh, it's getting political.
Oh, here we go.
Well, it just started. It's already getting political. I have to say, I'm thinking for this. I'm thinking that this is a mistake with vehicles. My experience on this map, and the patch hasn't really changed this, is that dock swarms are far more effective. A vehicle player is going to be constantly in trouble, simply because you can't respond fast enough. If 2 players go docks, then they will swarm one of the other players, and the guy with vehicles can't come in fast enough.
The only thing I can think of is if a player with vehicles is able to maintain enough of a control on this central point here. It's very difficult to do. It's not really a choke point per se. It's too wide to be called a choke point. But if you can maintain a good fluid sort of defensive play around the central area with the vehicles, I can see how you might be able to justify using those over bots. But I'm not entirely confident. I've just seen that there's some teleporters going up now already. What's that combat fabric? Is he going to build one over there to try and get some units in?
I think so. That seems to be the plan, although he's been left to sit there. It's not exactly a large transit time, so someone's very distracted building up their initial build order, but they really need to slap down that teleport and take over that ground quite quickly, because that's a significant early resource investment, putting that combat fabric on the ground there. But a good play by Army 1. I think it's gonna really pay off for them. Like I said, that's a key battleground.
A potential for a good play. It's still not quite finished yet. I've not seen a lot of scouting happening yet. They've not even seen whether they've seen their opponent's initial build orders yet. Obviously, they know where their opponents are starting, so actually finding out where they are is not a key issue. But it's very, very important early on, as you said, to try and identify which of the unit types your opponents are trying to focus on. Because having a tank army is a very, very different thing to having a bot army. They're much stronger, slower moving. So you sacrifice a little bit of map control, but where they are and where you can place the tanks, you get a lot more hard-hitting power than you do with bots.
Now, I think both teams are just on the assumption here that they're going to build their tanks, roll forward. They need to take that battleground, which is why Army 1's already landed there. Everyone sort of knows what everyone's just doing at this point. They're building up their production and is going to roll forward towards the middle. Not a whole lot of deviation in terms of play we're going to be seeing this early on.
Army 1 have scouted Cosmic Joke's teleporter, so they know that Cosmic Joke have gone for an early play there in that little cluster on the back of the planet. I call it the back.
That's Army 1 building you mean Army 1 because they got the teleporter around the back there.
Yes, you're quite right. I've just got the team names the wrong way around. My apologies. Close enough, though, right?
There is indeed a teleporter, and it has indeed been scouted. And I think we should hopefully see some very swift challenge there from Cosmic Joke, or they're really going to be in trouble. Those mechs are going to be utilised quite quickly by Army 1, I suspect, and you can already see a slight eco advantage, so their production hasn't kept up with it yet.
No, that's the thing. In the early game, you can see they're floating now. They've actually gone so hard on their early eco that they've not been building factories fast enough to actually make use of it. We now see an attack coming in from our French comrades. A couple of tanks in there, some bolos and a couple of infernos and a little bit of AA there just to sort of waylay any bombers that might be around. It's going to run up against the commander, so it's not going to do too much. He's a very strong defensive unit. He'll be able to deflect that without too much of an issue, but it's going to be a little bit of a pain, I can imagine. They're trying to circumvent him, go round the back and try and cause a bit of damage to the eco.
Well, as long as they can get that those infernos round there, then I think they will take up that teleporter. And it's there's some docs sitting there not engaging. They really need to get involved now. Oh, whoa, no! Oh, the infernos are going to take up the vehicle factory. Probably a smart move, really, because at this point the teleporter's done its damage. I'm actually surprised to see the teleporter there, considering they did an airdrop. Unless maybe they're expecting to see Cosmic Joke putting up some factories inside inside this area just to try and challenge for it. But
they've got the link there, and it's a fenced off area, and they have a ground link now between their main base and the rear of the planet. So strategically, in the long term, that teleporter could be a very, very smart move, and they're not that expensive. It seems like they've made a fairly good investment. Another little confrontation happening over here, which I think you've just pinged for me. More forward movement by Infernos, causing a load of damage to Army 1's economy. And they've actually lost quite a few metal extractors out of that. They are still ahead in terms of metal income, but only just.
Yeah, we can see how important the economy from the back of the planet is, just for the fact that Army 1 is still managing to maintain an eco lead. But they are starting to slip behind now in terms of army. And they're definitely very much on the back foot here. Oh, we see some pelicans flying across here from Cosmic Joke. I think they're going to be making a push for these fabbers.
They're going to get those fabbers and all of those metal extractors as well. They've got bolos in there and an inferno as well. The bolos picked off the engineer, the fabricator, and now the inferno is just going to walk around there and clean up and get rid of those metal extractors. I saw the pings going down there before there, so they obviously pinged each other to let them know what they're doing, and then they coordinated their attack, and they're going to go in there and take out some more metal extractors and further put pressure on Army 1's economy.
Unfortunately, they do seem to be beyond their APM at the moment. They've got this drop that they've dropped in there, but they're not moving to close down those metal extractors. That Inferno is rather wasted right now. Thankfully, Army 1 is way too far away to be responding, and I think all of those mechs will be dead by the time that those reserves get there to try and defend the mechs.
We're now starting to see more and more factories coming online from Army 1, and they're no longer floating their economy. Actually, the main bottleneck has been energy for the last minute or so, but they're now brought more energy plants online, and they're now currently at 50% utilization of their metal, so 50% efficiency rather on the metal. So they're stalling a bit now from that damage that has been done to their economy by the Northern Walk players.
I think Cosmic Joker making a quick push on the commander. I saw the ping go down there, one of Army 1's commanders. They're moving in their They're moving in their army where they've got some relatively heavy Inferno composition. In fact, ready to close in. I do think they did ping the army to the north of them thereafter, so perhaps they're going to go for a swing defensive. I think that was a mistake. I really think they should just head straight into that base. They've got a lot of Infernos. They're no good in the open field. They need to push into those buildings.
And now, actually, you see the Army 1 has had time to react. They've seen that coming, and they've reacted accordingly. They've brought all their forces to the front of the base to try and defend. There's actually not that much there, to be honest. There are enough Infernos at the front line there that they're going to start soaking up the shots from the bolos, protecting the long-range units at the back, and actually that's going to cause them a fair bit of damage. Army 1 is probably going to lose most of those factories to this attack.
Yeah, Army 1 very much on the back foot. You can see from the fab account that they went for a very, very heavy eco build, and they've just been way too eco. In fact, they haven't managed to hold off any of these attacks. The Cosmic Joker really dictating the flow of this game, striking deep into the both Army 1 bases, and making good use of Pelicans as well to do deep drops.
Yeah,
very
I have to
impressed.
say that very, very strong economy play from Army 1, but as you say, they've just not had enough focus on what to do with that economy once they've got it. It's all very well having a far, far better eco than your opponent, but if you're not actually building units with it, then what use is that to you?
Well, they're being very slow to convert their advantage on the in the back eco area. They've got a lot. They put fabbers down there. They got there quickly, but they still haven't taken it over. Being very slow to take those metal extractors. I'd expect to see a heavy production focus in the main base areas with the heavy fabbers in that small eco block, perhaps using the teleporters to bring them back afterwards. But Army 1 do seem to be recovering slowly now.
Yeah, what Cosmic Joke need to do is take advantage of the pressure that they've got at the moment. They've got Army 1 on the back foot. They need to keep the pressure going, and they need to make sure they keep this advantage that they've got. Because with Army 1 slowly creeping ahead in the eco, they're going to start to lose that advantage. They need to make best use of this pressure before Army 1 is able to recover and start putting the things the other way around.
Well, Cosmic Joke certainly putting that pressure on. They're making another push into Army 1's base. They've got an Inferno roaming around the eco area at the back. Slowly starting to get up their own air force now to scout out and shut down the intel that Army 1's been gathering with flying around the air. Surprisingly, actually, it does seem that Cosmic Joke has the air advantage right now, but they haven't been using it to do much scouting. They're sort of blindly pushing it with their armies. But they do have the troops to do it, although Army 1 now making its first sizable push over towards Cosmic Joke. I don't think it's going to get very far. There's a substantial army on the other side of that ledge. And if they play it right, in fact, they should put their Infernos just below the ramp, and that will restrict what Army 1 can actually shoot, and then they can kill the Bolos as they come over the edge.
Big confrontation happening here just to the south of the Northern Walk base. There's lots of Infernos at the front line there. They're stopped, they're stationary. They should really be moving those forward to take advantage of those short range, high damage flamethrowers, but they're not. They're sat there stationary. That was really poor play there, and they lost a lot of advantage there. They had the possibility to completely eliminate this force by Army 1.
Yeah, that was a devastatingly terrible play by Cosmic Joke there. Absolutely terrible. They should have sat just below the ledge so that the Bolos couldn't shoot them until they got in range of the Infernos. But failing that, they had to advance and just advance on that force because they have Infernos. They could keep moving, and they just.
Oh, I've just spotted. There's a leveler there. They must have.
They have gone tier 2 over in one of their bases. That could definitely compensate for the advantage that Army 1 has in its eco space. Eco space is still struggling to convert into a sizable advantage in this game. And normally that will determine the winner of the game, but Cosmic Joke definitely defying the odds here.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I'd really like to see at this point? I think they've been making very, very good use of Infernos, and I feel like they could really convert that into putting a few Vanguards on the field. Because they are... I love Vanguards. I think they're fantastic instruments because they are just so damage spongy, and that cannon is absolutely brutal if you can get it in range.
Well, considering that they've shown they want to do Pelican drops, that could definitely be something they could do. There are a few Vanguards in Pelicans, fly them over, drop them by a commander, and that's a commander kill right there. I'm not sure I agree that the Vanguard in general is going to be a good choice for this map. It's very open. I think either Shellers or Levelers are going to be the way to go with your tier 2 vehicles here. It's a lot of open space. The Shellers perhaps because of the choke points that you have, so it's easy to defend them. But Vanguard, quite slow, probably not enough hit points for the cost. I don't think we're gonna see them unless they decide to do a drop.
I do feel like the drop is a really good little bit of play here. But so far, it seems like they're pretty well committed to producing levelers. Meanwhile, on the back of the planet, it looks like Army 1 has more or less completed the expansion of that little economy nest, as it were. They just finished off the last few mechs, and now you can see the eco lead starting to really take effect. Looking up in the top left-hand corner, they've got 450 to 300. That's a 50% advantage in the eco. They're going to start to pull this back very, very quickly now. They're starting to use all of that for production, and they're going to really start putting the pressure back on our Cosmic Joke friends.
Cosmic Joke are going to pumping out levelers from the tier 2 factory, but really they need to be getting out the tier 2 eco. A swift Tier 2 is, you're not getting advantage through the units, you're getting advantage through the eco, and you almost always first things you build up that factory should be fabbers, and then you turn and then you suddenly explode your economy, getting your tier 2 metal extractors and energy up, and that's what's going to win you a game, not building a few levelers out of your one factory. That seems like a terrible mistake.
Well, if we look, they actually do have only a single tier 2 fabricator there, and assisted by 2 tier 1s. Really, they ought to have a lot more things assisting that and putting their economy back where it needs to be. Because at the moment, the confrontation is very much swinging in Army 1's favour here, because they're starting to accumulate larger and larger forces, and they're making very good use of them. In particular, the confrontations over this little bridge here have been slowly going in the... If I can actually pick up a ping, that'd be great. They've been slowly shifting in Army 1's favour.
Well, indeed, there have been some poor choices there by Cosmic Joke. Coming down that ramp is not a good idea. And this is where Shellers would really work for them, because then Army 1 can't camp at the bottom of that bridge. Just simply due to the fact the Shellers would be attacking that army, and then Cosmic Joke could just withdraw across the plateau. What they're doing now, and they're going to try it again. It's not going to work for them this time either. No, they need to get up. They need to either decide to just hold that area, or they need to withdraw and go around the side. They're never going to get down that ramp with that composition.
Now you can see a little bit of confrontation happening now in the middle of the map for that little ring of metal extractors. A few bombers trying to take out the Army 1 extractors. Meanwhile, there's a little army there for Cosmic Joke trying to defend its own little strip of extractors on the far side.
We see Cosmic Joke making a little raid with an Inferno there. Took out a lot of energy at the back of Army 1's base, but since Army 1 is apparently floating massively in terms of energy, it was rather an ineffectual attack. And some tier 2 up as well for Army 1 now, who have chosen to go Shellers rather than to go with the levelers approach that Cosmic Joke have taken. I think that's going to pay off for them. I think we're going to see them grind down Cosmic Joke at this point. Cosmic Joke really need to pull something out. They need more eco. They need to take advantage of the fact they own this centre area, convert that into an eco that can match Army 1's use of the back of the planet.
Absolutely. Really, they just need to get some tier 2 economy. Actually, in fact, you were saying earlier about the T2 economy, and now I've just seen where the main advantage for Army 1 is starting to come through. They've actually got some Tier 2 engineers, fabricators already trying to convert. They've converted massive swathes of their base already to Tier 2. I'd be surprised they've sent some through the teleporter as well, and that little nest at the back is also being upgraded, so they're going to really start to pull ahead here. Cosmic Joke just didn't manage to convert that early T2 advantage into something meaningful. Well,
let's not count them out yet. I think they've still got an opportunity to pull it back, but they're going to have to get that eco up and running very quickly indeed. With the tier 2 that's in place for Army 1 now, who are sensibly getting out their own tier 2 fabbers, it's going to prove to be quite tricky. They've still got a window, but that window is closing fast.
What are your thoughts then, Quitch, on trying to pull off... This is obviously a very choke-pointy map and very standoffish. You have these confrontations, as we're seeing now in the middle, where armies just grind into one another. There aren't really that many manoeuvring opportunities. What are your thoughts on using some sort of super weapon, so maybe using a long-range piece of artillery or nukes to try and pull off some commander snipes?
Well, in the way of a politician, I'm going to take your question and then give the answer that I wanted to give. I feel that really Army 1, considering the approach they've taken to this map, have gone wrong by going with vehicles. They should have gone with docks earlier. They wanted to make aggressive moves, that we saw them attacking around the back of bases, and that's what you do with docks. I don't know why they went with tanks. It meant they've had to slowly push in. The Inferno's been great, sure, but just massing up docks on both of their bases, and it's deceptively large. This map is larger than it seemed when you're playing with tanks. If you have a docks army and a tank army on one side of those walls and you push over to the other side, the tanks can't keep up. It's very easy to dodge tank armies. It looks like everyone's getting contained, but actually you can skip around those tank armies quite quickly, especially when they become as reliant on walls as Army 1 are making them. In terms of what they need to do with Tier 2, I think, well, you can nuke someone, but I don't think you're going to get the eco for it. I think this is going to stay very much a mobile unit confrontation, because while it can become very defensive, the walls can go up. It's always, the pressure is always there. The bases are quite close together. There's not a lot of breathing room to build up that super weapon.
I'm just trying to see what our Cosmic friends are doing. They've actually got a second advanced vehicle factory going up now, so they're trying to focus very much on these bigger, hard-hitting units. In particular levelers, which I think they're still pumping out at... No, they have switched over to Shellers now. I think they may have actually looked at the right-hand Army 1 base down there and switched across to Shellers, seeing how effective they've been.
Well, we see now that there's some bot factories going up from Army 1 as well. They're starting to put out their booms. They're getting ready to try and get a sniper if they can see a commander vulnerable, but not going to get a very good opportunity for that because Cosmic Joke have their commanders very deep, and there's a lot of pelicans going up. I think we're going to see a large inferno drop soon from them. Seems to be what they're preparing for. I don't see any. Unfortunately for you, I don't see any vanguards. I do see a lot of infernos by the pelicans though.
But I think a vanguard drop in the back of the base, like in particular, like for example, right here in the middle of Army 1's metal field. If I can actually pick up the ping again, it's really not being very nice to me today. In the middle of this metal extractor field here for Army 1.
Yes, I think there's some good opportunities back there, and perhaps, and actually, in fact, that's exactly where they're going. Pelicans, where are they going? They're going to land by the energy field by the looks of it instead. That's also a good choice. Unfortunately, right next to some turrets. Could have done with scouting that a bit better, I think, but still, the other one was right by the teleporters, so probably wouldn't make that much success. Shutting down those energy fields nicely. Not sure that's going to turn out to be hugely cost-effective, though. And indeed, no. If you actually check the metal loss graphs for the moment, we can see that Cosmic Joe going out far the worse in all of these confrontations. They are losing way more than they're killing. And we see, surprisingly, catapults getting built up. Not normally something you would see in these battles. And the boombox just being thrown out now to trim straight into the infernos, though. That's unfortunate. Now, it's a bit of a waste of those booms. They're running into infernos, which are one of the natural counters to booms. Oh no, tier 2 Faber right on the front lines. Rather brave, Faber. Certainly, it looks like Army 1 are trying to push their luck now, seeing if they've got the forces to break out of these little base areas, which they are heavily fortifying on the front lines. Rather unnecessarily, I think, but still. They've got the eco, they're spending it, they're not taking any chances. They're going to just grind this one out, slowly take the centre, and from there they're going to try and push for victory. But they are now struggling for energy. That attack, they're taking out a couple of their power, tier 2 power plants, really does seem to have cost them. But it won't be long, I think, before they have that situation back under control again. But now we see Cosmic Joke starting to just do a standoff, bit of shelling against the Army 1 base that doesn't have any shellers in it. They could do with getting some over there. But Gilly now, a lone Gilly. Slowly going to pick off that army unless it's countered.
Gillies are, of course, very, very good little... for the low APM opponents, you can just sort of station those just outside their base or just off of their army and just pick things off if they're not paying attention. They're fantastic, annoying little things.
No, absolutely. I do love the Gilly, and I think the Gilly on this map is an excellent unit. Really good. I think I'd probably prefer it to the Sheller. So another reason to go Docks, I think, because you can go into Gillies, and they are absolutely amazing on this map. It's all open terrain. They can maximise their range advantage, especially with these very slow, close quarter compositions that we're seeing coming out of Cosmic Joke. Lots of Infernos. Gillies just run backwards, kill them all. But Army 1 now making a major push out of its tier 2 base. Seeing how far they can get with that, and I think they're going to find they can get quite a long way. Meanwhile, though, on the other side, we're seeing that the Cosmic Joke trying to make a big push in, and Army 1's army is unfortunately on the wrong side of its production. They're gonna lose a lot of units there before they... Oh no! There's these Infernos. They need to close in. What are they doing? No, they need to push forward. Oh, why are they retreating to the back of the army? That is the meat shield. That is the meat shield of this army, and for some reason they've moved them to the back. It's a terrible decision. They had to commit to that assault, while the army of Army 1 was still funneling through those buildings. The Infernos could have been devastating, and now for some reason, just awful, just awful. And with that, I think Cosmic Joke have really just lost themselves the game. That was a great opportunity to go and do some substantial damage to one of the bases of Army 1, even as Army 1 was pushing in elsewhere. That could have been devastating, and we see even how much Army 1 lost there. And if they run straight into Infernos, they'd have lost a lot more, but alas, some really poor army management there.
So Micro is... PA is a fantastic game, because really micromanagement is a fairly small part of it. It's much, much more about your macro strategy. However, when you're handling large armies like that, there is a small amount of micro required to make sure you've got the right units doing the right thing at the right time. And I think just failed to fully make good use of those units there. Absolutely, they really put themselves in the wrong place there. It's not about
it's not about small little firing off special abilities or doing tiny micro movements, although there's some of that in PA. It's primarily around how you're positioning your army and how you're positioning the composition of your army as well, and moving your Infernos to the back of the army, especially when you have the opportunity to engage in a close quarters battle, is just terrible army usage, and I think we're going to see them pay for that.
That's it. In the last few minutes, I've not seen a great deal of scouting from either player, of either team rather, in this, and that's very important at this stage. Like, right now, that left-hand base for Cosmic Joe is very exposed. There is not a big army there, and if Army 1 had been paying much closer attention, they would, and if they had been scouting properly, they'd have seen the vulnerability there, and they could have sent in that massive army, including loads of T2 units that they've got sat there in the middle. They could have sent that straight into that base and got a commander kill off of that. I think scouting is going by the wayside here for both teams, which is at this stage of the game you need to be scouting to see what opportunities you've got so you can take advantage of them.
Well, somehow Cosmic Joker are making much better progress against this Army 1 base than they have any right to be making. One of these Army 1 players is being very conservative. We see them advancing into the centre with advanced laser turrets, which just blows my mind that we're seeing those at all, and catapults of all things. They're really just creeping forward and giving Cosmic Joke plenty of opportunity to come back. And this poor player from Army 1 here, finally the teleporter is switched on and some tier 2 reinforcements sent through, and that will hopefully be enough to shut down this Cosmic Joke attack. But they've been given so much opportunity. It's just amazing.
Can I just direct your attention to the top left of the screen temporarily, so we can look at the economies that we're dealing with here. We can see the humongous advantage that Army 1 is playing with right now, and I'm struggling to see what it is that they are doing with this economy that's not enabling them to win. With double the economy of your opponent, you should be stomping at this point, and they're not. They're playing so conservatively.
Well, if we look at the army count, you can see that Army 1 are playing with about 9 times as many Fabbers as Cosmic Joke, and I think that's where a lot of these resources are being thrown. This creep into the centre is costing them a lot of resources. They have also gone probably rather more heavy with the tier 2, I think, than Cosmic Joke have, so their armies are a lot more costly. Oh, it's a Vanguard! It's a Vanguard!
They've used Vanguards! Fantastic!
Yeah.
I love Vanguards. They're just so dramatic. They're just so slow moving. They creep forward, and anything that gets in range of that thing gets absolutely toasted. They didn't manage to get that one in range. There we go. There goes the little Uber cannon of the Vanguard. Oh, I haven't seen those in so long.
And how ineffectual those Vanguards were there. Once again,
yeah, they were against the wrong army composition. I'm not going to lie. They were used in the wrong situation there. They should have been going for buildings. They are fantastically effective against buildings, not so much against you.
Well, they can,
commanders, of course,
tear through tier 1 if given the right. Oh, Army 1, why are you single filing in their armies? They need to bunch these guys up before they move in. But again, we see more Vanguards leading the charge. I prefer just to see them go with more Shellers and Bolos myself, but I think they're going to win this just through sheer eco advantages. But
it's just going to be brute forcing. There's no tactics involved in this. They're just sending large clumps of units into other large clumps of units and then coming out on top because they just have more of them.
Yes, there's certainly a bit of a lack of finesse going on here, I think, from Army 1, and perhaps making rather more hard work of this. But talking of super weapons, here's our Hulkins going up. Rather vulnerably, in fact, considering that we now... Oh, they're running the booms into Infernos. No, why are you doing that? Why are you doing... And the Pelicans... What are these Pelicans doing? Why are they doing this? No, why are they doing this? Oh, they've flown the Pelicans right over all that and the flak and just lost them all. I don't think there was anything even in them. So I don't know if it was a misclick or what they were doing. But anyway, the Pelican force is dead. So good job. Okay. Good job there.
Can I just award this game about a 2 out of 10 for style for both teams at this point?
I think you may. I think a 2 out of 10 is perhaps more than fair. So I was very pleased to see the early aggressive play though from Army 1, but I feel that they've sort of wasted that. There was a good opportunity early on for them to take this game. They just haven't quite reached the grasp of it. I believe their mistake with the tier 2 going for the levelers instead of the tier 2 eco has probably cost them this game, and they could have crushed Army 1, who were far too slow to take advantage of their eco.
Both teams, I think, have lessons learned from this game to take into the next 2 fixtures that we have. I say 2, of course, assuming that round 2 does not follow the same outcome as this one. I'm just combing the base of Cosmic to see whether they've got any snipe material in there, because I feel like they're not going to be able to win on full frontal assaults now. They just don't have the eco to support that. This is where, as a team, you need to be thinking about snipes, and I think they could have gone with a Vanguard Pelican drop as a snipe, kill off all their Pelicans, so that's no longer quite as viable as it was.
We see a nuke up now for Army 1. They also have a fully loaded anti-nuke, so part of this very cautious play they've been doing. This is where all the resources have been going.
Far too cautious.
Yes, I think I might well agree
that's wasted also. They have an umbrella, for goodness sake. No orbital units. They have an orbital radar which says there are no orbital units, and yet they're still defending against orbital units.
Yeah, it's clearly this is the case of let's not screw this up, they've said, and they are building a bit of everything to protect themselves.
Well, I'd argue that being overly defensive is screwing up in its own little way, because you're wasting resources. They're sending boombots into vanguards again. That's messing up.
Certainly, they don't seem to know what to do with these boombot armies they've built, especially considering they saw very heavy Inferno compositions early on, which would suggest that boombots are probably not the way to go. Indeed, docks are going to do better against Infernos because they can dodge them. But to be quite honest, considering the number of bolos, again, probably not going to do much. But they're just winning through sheer weight of numbers, and then eventually those booms get inside the armies and rip through them. They just need to trim out the vanguards first.
On the back of the planet, we can see an orbital launcher has also been built by Army. They're just not committing to any one strategy. They're simultaneously building huge numbers of land units and trying to crush them into their front lines.
And the nuke is away. The nuke is away. We're seeing that launching right into the heart of Cosmic Joke. I don't see anything to stop that. I couldn't have thought.
Why would they expect this? Why would they expect a nuke at this point?
Well, this is the game of everything. To be quite honest, if there was an annihilator on this map, I would expect Army 1 to be building that as well. And there goes the GGs. They have not thrown
their weight behind any one strategy. It's just they've been sort of trying a little bit of everything.
The GGs have gone down from Cosmic Joke, and there goes one commander, and there goes the other commander, and Army 1 take it with their game of everything, where they literally went for absolutely every single weapon they could possibly build in one of the least focused bits of play I've seen in a while.
I think we can dub that one the Game of Thrones, but throne is spelled Thrown.
And the puns are out. We're in game 1 of round 1, and we have got our first pun. Everyone, take a note of this time.
Time of death. Yeah.
If we just look at the graphs here, and we saw that in terms of that usually Army 1, Cosmic Joke would come out the worst of those confrontations. Although certainly Army 1 got a little lazier about it later on. You can see that they start to lose a lot more metal until their nuke lands. But they really probably didn't need to do that at all. But it worked out for them. It worked out for them.
Army 1 did a lot of things that they didn't need to do in that game. A lot of things.
Yes, it could have been a cleaner victory, I think. But certainly we see that a lot of economy issues for Cosmic Joke in the mid game there. Didn't really again. I think that's going for the tier 2 and not bringing out the tier 2 eco, which is really the reason you go tier 2 in the first place.
Absolutely. To be honest, I'm disappointed really that Cosmic Joke didn't have a better game than that. They had an exceedingly strong start. They were putting on the pressure left, right, and centre. The only thing which kept Army 1 in the game, I feel, is that little expansion at the back there, which gave them the eco they needed to respond in time to all those threats. But the defensive play initially was less than stellar. They had the wrong units in the wrong place at the wrong time, took some early losses, but only because they had that advantage by having the rear economy expansion as well, were they able to react and fend off those attacks. And then Cosmic Joke didn't react. They did not react. They scouted that expansion. They did not react. I didn't see a single challenge on that rear expansion throughout the entire game, which really they ought to have done. They had bombers at some point. I didn't see a huge amount of defense there from Army 1. They really could have gone in there and tried to pry them out of that little shell, but they didn't, not even once, and I think that really was to their detriment.
Yeah, they started out very well. There were a lot of really nice raids around the back. They were putting the pressure on Army 1. Part of the mistake, I think, was they just didn't challenge enough for the rear resource area. They made a very weak initial attempt to take it, and then never really went there again. And again, as well, the drops sort of died off as the game went on. I think they should have kept up with that. there was a lot of very vulnerable metal around the back, especially early on.
And very vulnerable commanders as well.
Absolutely,
it has to be said.
Absolutely.
Once the Vanguards were on the field, there was absolutely ample. The Vanguards are fantastic commander killers. All you need is 2 Vanguards, and you can take out a commander if he's out on his own. And there were several points throughout that game where Army 1's commanders were left horribly exposed at the rear of their base.
Let's have a look. What time did Cosmic Joke go for Tier 2? So they did do an initial Tier 2 fab. It was the first thing they put out of there, but only the one. And really, given their situation at that point in the game, they had an army advantage. That would have been a great opportunity for them to push more Tier 2 fabbers out. Use the army advantage to buy the time, snowball the economy, even perhaps some drops on the eco of Army 1 at that point, just to keep them really occupied while they snowballed. But apart from apart from the Inferno or 2 into the back eco of Army 1, they didn't really put the pressure on them.
Oh, if you think about it, there was not a huge military presence even in that rear eco nest. If they dropped a Vanguard in there, they'd have wrecked everything. Just a single Vanguard could have gone in there and trashed the place.
I think not moving to a more open space composition also hurt them. They kept building those Infernos even at the point where they were being pushed back and no longer moving in amongst the base of Army 1, and at that point the Infernos weren't really achieving a lot. They were just getting picked off by mass bolo compositions that Army 1 was fielding.
There were lots of mistakes made by both teams in that. Like I said earlier, I think a 2 out of 10 might be generous actually in terms of style points, because all it came down to was just build lots of everything and send it into the middle.